roll call members, we have self, Margot Jones, chair,
Glad here.
Sarah Bullock, secretary.
Terry Stigers.
Jeremy Anderson.
and Doug,
Oh,
Doug up there. And other guests, well, staff, we have Aaron.
Erin Anholt.
And John Garrett from City Council regarding the height height review, height change amendment. And also we have gentlemen from St. James and Andrews Church. So, okay,
If I could get your name, sir, just what, you can write it down and give me, if you guys want to,
Sure.
for the record. Sure. You go in minutes.
okay, so first item under old business is a letter that I wrote regarding the schoolhouse number 7. Did everybody get a chance to read it online? Yeah.
Yes.
Any tweaks or corrections or anything?
No, actually, it sounds really good.
Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna read it because we have a lot on the agenda, but here you can look at it.
Okay.
Okay, I will issue that. Thank you. 170 to 186 Main Street project. They submitted more drawings. And can you get them up? Yes, I can sort of ask them a lot, but think that basically what they've done is added cornice piece that's,
Yes,
that's very small.
well, that's okay. It's better than none.
Have you looked at it, Jim? Yes.
I haven't seen it yet.
So
Thank you, Sean.
any other, well, any comments?
What's it made of, you know?
No?
So they've got a cornice up there and it looks to be in a contrasting color, but we don't know the material, right?
Right.
Well, it's still a detail that the building sadly needed, so I think.
I was hoping it would be brick myself, but I guess it has to span between the metal siding or whatever the vertical siding is
Right.
and the brick.
Right.
And if expand this,
That's in the drive, where,
what,
is that in the drive that you're looking at?
yeah, it's under
Where?
projects.
Projects?
Yeah, it doesn't even mention. It does help.
Yeah, and
186.
there's only so many materials that could be for the application.
Right.
Well, now,
way-
remember this building is.
Oh, yes. I see.
That was just a
I
suggestion.
know, it was a suggestion.
I'm glad they took the suggestion. We really don't have the time. Fantastic to see.
So I will write a letter saying we're happy to Mass Historic.
Yeah.
Which is fine. They came back and we did their diligence. They really great.
Yeah.
Okay, I mentioned here the 2 subcommittees has to get feedback on how things are going, sort database and maps.
I am still looking at it. It's taking forever.
Yeah, it's a big job. Yeah, okay, so in progress.
In progress.
Yes, great. And demolition delay ordinance changes.
Likewise in progress.
The one baby being born, another baby. I was in the emergency room 2 days ago.
Oh, I know.
I've done nothing. It's still not good.
Excuse me.
She could have walked to the.
Before I got the computer on, he was very close to me.
Okay, all understood, maybe over this summer, maybe by September, we get it.
That's a long.
Sometime over the next 18.
That would be good.
Waste some coffee.
So then the next item is the letter about Amherst College
Yes.
Community College.
I did talk to Chris,
Oh, yeah?
and mostly made me feel old. I haven't worked with him in a long time, and last time I did, my boy was a toddler and his kids were babies, and they're all in high school. Speaking of which, but the short answer is we really, there's nothing going on over there that really should interest us. It was an old very old Eversource project that got expanded. Their corridor didn't expand much. The archaeologists went through, they did a survey in Mountain and Greenfield. Found a couple of things in Mountain nothing at all in Greenfield.
Bullets, or what are they called, Tim?
Musket ball.
Musket ball, nothing?
No, and the only reason that we were included in the CTO letter is because for the job they were doing, the Army Corps of Engineers were involved. And when they're involved, all the Ts get extra crosses and the Is get extra dots. So they just tacked us onto the list, even though they ordinarily wouldn't have even talked to us.
They didn't find anything from that period? That's so,
Not in Greenfield because, well, there are known sites there,
yeah.
but they didn't do a survey of them. They're known sites, so they were avoided before and
Okay, then.
it's always.
Catching up a little, so.
Yeah.
The
Right.
preference in any archaeological survey at any step of the line is avoided.
Right.
If you can.
Gotcha.
That's
Okay.
always the first step, so.
So they avoided previously.
Yeah, years ago, they found, I think it was 3 different sites that they found way back when they did the job originally. And they avoided them, and there's no reason to go back over that ground for this, so they didn't find anything new, or at least not in Greenfield.
Okay, so we can cross this on us. List of concerns. Oh,
Alerted.
Yes.
yeah, thank you, glad you knew the person,
Yeah.
it's very helpful.
Yeah, so to talk to.
Yeah. Great. Paleontology gets, and archaeology gets short shrift sometimes.
Yes, and in neither Chris nor I could figure out why the word paleontology was included in any of this.
Oh, archaeology, really, yeah, okay, good. Huh. Well, it went to their department. Something, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Coordinating with Noah Beacon though, because I know Google has been really involved in a lot of that stuff with, battleground sites and stuff here, so I think we'll there. Where indigenous people get.
Oh, they,
the church too.
That was on the list, that on the letter, yeah.
I can't remember the last time that I even know of an archaeological survey being done without native observers.
Good.
It just, that's. how we do it.
Standard thing.
Yeah, just how we do it.
Yeah.
The members of our battlefield group routinely work at that. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're under, yes, Sarah?
Before we go on to new business, I just want to say on the record on camera, I did submit my candidacy for city council, so I'm trying to run for city council, so it's not that it will come up. But anything that does come up like that, just for the record, that's and it's in the paper now, so it's official.
Do that for zero.
Oh, yeah.
You have.
Yeah, but I can't sign at large. See, seven. For instance, the things with like the Wiley Russell Dam, the Wiley Russell Dam and all that kind of stuff in precinct 7. So just because that should come up, we get into any new business. That is something I'll just be transparent.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah. John could try to talk you out.
Well, see,
But
the dollar store and get a sign. It has to be about precinct 7. It's gonna be great.
No, who cares about precinct 7? And not.
Well, listen, that is the signal historic district, I think, in Greenfield. As far as the like industrial history, that it.
What is fantastic. I
Yeah,
think
sure.
it's a-
But he's not either.
For the additional posting there. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, so I think, I know we want to have a robust discussion about a couple of the items on new business. First one was, just reporting on proposed demolition speed bump, and, I don't think we quite have the system. Right, because Jeremy and I are both reviewing proposed demolitions, and Jeremy got notification of one that I did, and we said it was okay. It was a garage that was two-story, so that was approved. Is there any other?
I don't know, I mean, there was the,
Oh, the rear of the carriage, the rest of the Y building had been voted on already.
Yes.
So there was no question there that that was coming.
So do you need me to see if Mark should, like, is that where the?
I just haven't followed it out. It's my fault. I think that there's a new person working in his office.
Yes.
And she got Jeremy's email and maybe didn't get mine.
Okay.
I just have to.
At least one of us seems to be getting.
Okay,
Right.
we don't need anything on that.
Okay, no, I think it's, I gotta cross the T and dot the I. Okay, and we have, the next item is the gable end detail at St. James and Andrew Church. Many of you saw that the roof flew off, parts of the roof flew off, and Steve Renaissance Builder was kind enough to call me to see if we would care about the detail, and I think we would, so. That's why we had these gentlemen and who shows here tonight.
Right on the agenda too.
The documents that I should pull up.
So Stephen had sent you stuff. Did you not, do you not have that? I did bring a couple of copies, but I don't have several copies.
I had the original proposal. Did it get modified at all? Oh, good. Do you think he sent it to me?
He said he sent you this. Because I looked at it and I said, I can't believe you sent that with all those typos on. But he did. So, but I can, briefly, go over, I've brought a couple of photos to. So people can see what we're talking about. So,
This way. Yeah.
yeah, so this is, so you're standing down, you're standing down on the ground looking up at the roof.
Now, I'm looking for some hearing of this. Can I get brought up to speed? How, when, how? Did this all happen?
Maybe.
Early March.
Yeah, early, yeah, I was gonna say 6 to 8 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, there was a big windstorm and it caught the metal roofing and started pulling it up, and once part of it started to go, it all started to go.
Oh, no.
So, we went and tacked it down and did some investigating and determined that it all needs to be replaced. It was, at the time, probably was done to the code and standards, but not to current standards. It was, the roofing was screwed into OSB, which had 2 inches of insulation underneath it. So the roofing itself was depending on OSB that was sitting on the top of insulation and a vapor barrier over the roof sheathing. And underneath that is the finished ceiling in the church. So, so the OSB deteriorated.
Yeah.
And that's why the screws were coming out. And so in the course of determining what we need to do to fix it, the 2 inches of insulation does no longer meets code. And so we need 4 inches of insulation. And our engineer has determined that we also need to have an airspace, because part of the problem with the sheathing deteriorating is the fact that moisture is getting behind it. There's no way for it to move out. So we need to have an airspace. His recommendation is 2x4s, so we can get an inch and a half airspace. So what that does in relation to this picture here is, this is obviously the current roof surface tacked back down. On top of this, we need to add another 2 inches of insulation and 2 inches of airspace. So that brings the level of the new roofing up above the stonework on the eaves of the building. So one proposal was to go over the stonework, but that was determined to not be a good proposal. So what we are,
I mean, I need my colleagues to agree or disagree with me on that, but that was my initial reaction that. Do you have a picture?
Well, what's the amended, wait a minute, what's the amended?
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
Let's see what-
All right.
so the amended idea involves putting let's see, what's he got? Yeah, two 2x10s on end along here, which allows us to have something. This is kind of just a flat version. It allows us to have 2 inches of insulation, airspace, and 2 inches of insulation. And the roof sheathing Um,
Don't you mean 4 inches?
4 inches of insulation, 2 additional inches of insulation. Someone's gonna keep me honest. And then with adequate space to get flashing in around here, because the other thing that we discovered when we were looking at this is not really adequate flashing. It's,
Between the stone and the roof.
yeah, it's just kind of sort of tacked down and is not really, is not
Doing its job.
not really effective.
So you're proposing to go over the steps.
No. not
So-
anymore.
So,
That's what I
no,
understand.
so no, we are not now proposing to go over the steps. If you imagine this is one of the steps. What we would have is we would have the 2x10, which we of course will, cut down as much as we can. But it may end up being, the full 2x10 to 9¼ inches.
We still have the steps along the edge of the gate.
Right.
The flashing roof would be higher.
Yeah.
And the flashing would be the other direction, going the other direction.
Right, so then we could, this allows us to flash the roofing properly.
Right.
What that means with this, though, is that means that behind these steps, from the street, from the face of the building, you probably won't even be able to see it just because of the angle. From the side, you'll be able to see it. What you'll see is you'll see a 2x10. You'll see a line coming up here alongside this.
Sure.
Alongside.
It's flashing.
But you'll be seeing roofing, you'll be seeing this roofing level.
We,
Just go.
Pulled up,
yeah,
higher than the gable.
right.
Yeah.
But from this, from the front elevation, you won't really see that line.
You won't really see those because it's so far above you.
Yeah.
But from the side, you will notice that, okay, this part in the center sticks up further.
Right.
And, like I said, we would endeavor to make it stick up as little as possible, but it is gonna stick up.
This was the first.
So this, on this, this is the step under the existing.
Mhm. Yeah, this is this piece of stone.
Right. And this is the piece that will be. Yeah, so we're looking at it from the.
What color would that?
What is
Piece
this?
that stands up here, that color.
So this would have the lead coated copper wrapped around, so this material would essentially look the same as
Basically.
it's the same as the roof,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Right.
And the roofing would look similar to how it does now, just
A newer version, yeah,
Right, did everybody get?
without all the waves and
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, personally, I don't have any problem with that. It's a reasonable solution to the problem. As long as it's lead colored and the roof is lead colored, and you're only seeing it from certain angles. Traffic potential, I'm not sure if it gets characterized.
Marco's probably better at that than me.
It's
Um,
Gothic revival.
Gothic.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's our oldest masonry church.
I don't know, how it matches up the second cover, but,
Oh, it's earlier,
no, remember there was a wooden one there before.
right,
Okay, when was this, when was that?
I think it's 1840,
Oh,
you know,
really?
Yeah. yeah.
It also looks like this idea of having the 2x10 instead of going over the steps. It's only adding 3 inches to the height
Let's find it.
because you already have this sort of penetration is from the insulation anyway.
Yeah.
It was only adding that. It's already positive, so it's steps.
Oh,
right,
Doors.
yeah, and the reason that we have to come up above the level of the roof is to allow adequate space to do the flashing.
What's it?
I'm gonna pair Chinese braids. Yeah.
I don't know, somebody.
I really like the idea of camp. Is it the flagging? It's a 2x10.
yeah.
This is fantastic.
I have veil shirt, you know.
Yeah.
You?
I'm sorry, we're having a really hard time hearing you.
Please,
Okay.
conversation, please.
Our concern was,
was around dollars and cents.
Yeah.
You know, and what the insurance company was gonna cover and not, so there was something required in order to maintain the historical integrity that was gonna be way above and beyond the insurance company was, of course, they're always ready to say, no, we're not gonna insure anything, so our concern was just to make sure that it was all been fit within, the acceptable.
We can't hear you.
So,
You can't hear us?
No. Okay.
No, we're having a very difficult time hearing what your conversation is about.
Okay,
We can
you-
hear muttering, but we can't hear clarity.
Because we have a not very good mic system.
Oh, so you never let me-
Where's the mic?
I think it's-
They're incorporated into the.
Speaker.
Okay.
Okay, so you need to
So
speak
I'll
up.
repeat myself.
Yeah.
So our main concern was whether or not there was gonna be anything required to maintain the historical integrity of the building that would be way above and beyond in terms of from the perspective of the insurance company. Because they're ready to say, oh, no, we'll pay for this, but not for that. So we were condemned to really be up the shit without a paddle. So that was our concern. So if this is.
But this wouldn't be more expensive, would
Well,
it? Than covering up the steps.
um,
Can't imagine why it would.
no, in fact, it might end up being more expensive to cover up the steps.
Okay.
Because then we have another challenge right here. Our challenge stops at the steps.
Sure.
My understanding too is this new version was done in coordination with the insurance adjuster's engineer who came out, right? In some way, there's a second meeting like a week ago where.
I thought it was our engineer that was there.
It was.
Yeah, it was our,
In other words, from the insurance company, he didn't do anything. He just kind of looked and talked to Steve and that was about it.
yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
So we don't have an official word yet on, because I think originally they're like, we're only covering up to this is beyond that, and we were worried it wouldn't cover anything if we had that initial proposal. So
Sure.
we're kind of in a waiting period on the second proposal, but that's our main concern because of course,
Maybe this would be less expensive.
yeah.
Well,
There's two entries in Macros for this. So this is gonna be the one for the Episcopal Church, which is GRE 77. It is on the National Register.
Yeah.
Speak up, Sarah. 'cause
and
it's-
sorry, and yeah, can you give me the date?
1847.
1847. Yeah, it's very significant. So I really appreciate that
Yeah.
it came, your
Yeah.
builder came to us.
Yeah.
It's really honoring
Yeah.
our job and this new solution looks great. So we should have a vote. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor? Bill, you there? Right, great. Okay, thank you. Thanks for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking care of your historic building.
Yes, yes.
Thanks for your lives mission as well.
Yeah.
You've got a bigger building.
It's a lot of people, and it's like, it's like, yeah. Fine stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we didn't? Oh, okay, sorry, we went right past that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Going back quickly, I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes, the amended minutes.
So moved.
Those in, second,
Seconded.
all those in favor?
Um,
Aye. Aye, great, thank you, Stephanie. I mean, Sarah. Okay, next item is something that I put on here. There's a proposed amendment to be voted at city council next week. To raise the height in central commercial for for all buildings from, I think it's 45.
I think that's right. I think there's an exception to 55 if you get like a special permit or something.
Yeah, I mean, 55 is the tallest building. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the Willows building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many?
So we have John Barrett here, Garrett, sorry, who is one of the city councilors that has been involved in these amendments, and
Not this one in particular, although I do support the idea of raising the height limit. Frankly, if I had proposed this, it would have been stories rather than feet. But that's frankly, this is the amendment on the table and I'm gonna vote for it because I can give you various reasons, but I don't know what would be the most helpful to you. So if you want me to just kind of talk at you, or do you have?
Yeah.
What's the rationale?
So the rationale for the 80 feet, I am not entirely sure why he picked 80 feet. So it's Councilor Mastrotaro that picked this particular number. I think the idea is basically there's no one who's likely to find an economic case in Greenfield to build taller than that. And so the ultimate reason for doing any sort of height restriction lifting is because we're in a housing crisis and we need more housing. The central commercial district is the only district in the city that doesn't have parking minimums or setbacks for buildings, as you guys I'm sure are aware. And so this is really the area of town in which we're most likely to actually be successful in building housing. And so by reason, there have been numerous studies, the Standard Greenfield Master Plan, like not the Greenfield Housing Study. The Franklin County Regional Housing Plan is specific to our city, but also just piles of research saying that housing density is the best way to actually improve the affordability of housing. And so since we're out of land in the center of the city, building up is really the only option. The alternative being further suburbanization and sprawl. And so, personally, that to me is anathema to our goals as a sustainable city. We have farmland, we need to preserve it. If we want to have a green economy, then we need to build where we can build, especially in the areas that are developed and disturbed. The central commercial district historically was much denser than it is now. I'm sure you guys are deeply aware of like the Sanborn fire insurance maps. I look at them all the time. I love them. I figured that if I said that, you know what I was talking about, and that thrills me beyond belief.
Are you a history teacher?
I'm a history teacher. Yes, I teach high school history. It is, my passion, obviously. And so I apologize, by the way, for my slightly snippy response in the email I sent to you.
Yeah, it was snippy. I can be about Paris.
Yeah, I know. It's really. Yeah, I'm gonna say. Yeah, I am, if nothing, if not passionate. And so that is, again, and I just want to fully own that I wrote that email with a crying baby. I'm like, we have been talking about this for months. And so again, my apologies for my tone, but I appreciate it.
And my apologies for coming late to the game, but the ADU tremors or,
Now is all different.
yelling matches have, this part of the zoning amendments proposed didn't hit the paper. I haven't heard anybody
I
talk
think
about
that was
it.
in the paper. There was a public hearing about it.
There was a public hearing,
So that means.
but it was with the ADUs and the paper covered ADU this way and that way and up and down, but not a height change.
There's been a lot of opinion pieces in the paper about the ADUs and that.
Yeah.
Kind of taken straight.
Time would be placed.
Yeah.
I understand definitely, especially considering it's the historic center of the city, it's desire to keep an eye on it. And so, again, I get where you folks are coming from. And to me, we really have no choice, but again, to build up if we want to actually have affordability. One of the Greenfield Housing Study estimates we have like a 700 unit gap in the next decade that we need to build in order to keep things stable. That's not to make things better. Like we are going to be in an affordability crisis, even if we do that. And so it's a 5-alarm fire, to use the metaphor of the building we're in, as far as housing is concerned. And just to reemphasize, the key with the central commercial district is a lack of parking minimum. So you can actually build density that is going to have an economic effect that's measurable.
We love housing downtown.
Yeah.
It provides vitality, it gives customers, it helps commercial. I
I
mean,
don't think anybody's gonna argue with you on this group about the need for affordable housing. As you know, we've just been working with a project, with Wilson's project, which is one of those things that's going on. But nobody's gonna argue with you about that. So that's we're preaching to the choir here when it comes to that. Okay, the question is 80 feet. That's the question. Yeah.
But clearly, what does, because I'm not good with visualizing this, the tallest building downtown now, I think we talked about stories. How tall is our tallest building in this? It's 4 stories, and how many stories would this add to
The Greenfield Acres is probably 8 stories, I want to say, or 10.
Congress Street is not in the.
That's a different.
No, it's,
So what's the highest thing in the group? 45.
in my pitch, I think it barely sticks out, but it
So it'd be 25 feet high.
Yeah, it's there now.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because,
Okay, let's have one
Sarah?
conversation, Tim.
yeah, the reason I'm asking is that it's my understanding that the reason the fire department needs the truck that the height that they had to buy, which is extremely expensive, is because of the high rise. And that's why I wanted to know what's the relative height of the high rise versus this.
So these buildings would, this, I'm really well versed in the fire truck issues, so, sorry to jump in. But, the 50-foot is still less than the high rise, or the 80-foot is still, I believe, less than the high rise. And, because we have a high rise, they need the truck, so no matter what, that doesn't change. If they don't get it, all of our homeowners insurance goes up.
No, I'm not arguing that at all. All I'm saying is I wanted to know what the relative heights were, and you've just told me that, so I'm.
Okay.
It's great. Yes, I just wanted to know that question. I didn't know the height. Yeah.
Can I just ask, so we only review historic projects. And we then get to weigh in on whether they fit the historic environment or not. And clearly an 80-foot building in Main Street Historic District, it's gonna stick out.
So I
It's
guess
just is.
my response to that is like, so Main Street historically, if we want to go back to the 1700s, had no 3-story brick buildings. Prior to that, it was, this was a section of Deerfield, so that things change. And I know that, buildings heights currently, we have what's, Wilson's, as we've been discussing, is 55 feet.
Right.
That
And 5 stories.
and what we did since the 1930s, as you guys are well aware, is we subsidized single-family home ownership and the development of suburbia. And so this city is in a state of arrested development compared to what it would have been if the interstate highway system wasn't developed, if the Federal Housing Authority didn't prioritize single-family homes and suburbs and places out into, again, what was prime farmland. So if we didn't take those policies over the last century, there would be taller buildings in downtown, and you can see it in places that didn't suburbanize in quite the same way as the United States. So I understand again that a building 80 feet tall would stick out tremendously, but we're playing catch up over really since the 1970s, 80s is what the housing study revealed. We effectively stopped giving building permits with any sort of ease to folks. We made it really difficult to build housing. So I know it feels extreme to say, number 80 feet. And like I said, it's not the number I would have picked. I would have probably been a little, frankly, more modest, like 6 stories would have been fine.
I wouldn't have gotten a whimper.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to be having this meeting at the six.
But I regretted my tone, and I wanted to have a polite conversation with you folks. And I don't think 80 feet is going to harm the city's character, especially because I read the Mass General Law on that you folks operate under, and you still have the authority to alter the setbacks and the height if it's not appropriate. And so I think you should feel safe in the power that your committee has to keep things in downtown appropriate. And, there are going to be spots like, I think you mentioned in your email, the Pope Street lot.
Yeah.
There's that building right there, the extension on the courthouse. There's no reason you couldn't have an 80-foot building next to that, as far as aesthetics are concerned, and again,
There's no reason to have any.
not have that.
No.
I think that's, especially the way it steps down with the armory there, which is a large mass. And aesthetics actually, I think, are extremely important. So the fact that you guys will continue to have that authority to make sure the aesthetics make sense, I think should be.
I don't think that's in this.
No, not the Main Street. No, I'm talking about Main Street.
I know, so am I.
Yeah.
But I have to say that if you had a 5-story height in your, the proposed change,
Which would be 60. Or
we
might
wouldn't be
60.
having this meeting. There wouldn't be any problem. It wouldn't hurt anybody. And I have really hard time imagining somebody coming in and saying, I want to build a tall building on Main Street. Okay, and I want to build it 80 feet tall, but you can only allow 60, so I'm not going to build it. I just have a really hard time under.
I agree with you.
So let's go back and say, whatever, let's decrease the height and then we won't have any problem.
The difficulty of getting a zoning amendment passed cannot be overstated. Like the fact that this happened at all to get to this point is fantastic. And if we don't take this opportunity, we could be waiting.
But can't you amend it? No,
We,
it sends you back to.
And you don't even know why it was 80.
I talked to the man who wrote it and he basically said, I picked 80 because no one's gonna want to build taller than 80.
So that's exactly the reason not to approve it, because Amherst has 65 feet. I haven't been able to figure out Northampton, but I'm pretty sure they're 65.
So one of the things I found about, so I used to live in Hampton before I moved to the city, and I got priced out by the price of apartments. And I want us to do better than Northampton and Amherst and East Hampton and all these cities that are rapidly becoming unaffordable that young people can't live in. And the way we need to do that is to be bold. And as much as I wouldn't have proposed 80 feet, I 100% support it because we are in a crisis. You know, I teach high school. The things my students are the most afraid of are climate change and not being able to afford a house. Yeah, constantly. They're always talking about it.
Excuse me,
the-
Chair.
Yes.
Is this an open discussion or is the public going to be able to weigh in on this discussion? Because it sounds like a petitioning for the Historical Commission to reconsider its actual goals. So I wanted to weigh in if this is an open discussion. If not, is it just a presentation?
It's,
I don't think so.
it's not a public hearing, but you're, after, Counselor Garrett has talked, we will consider if you want to talk, we can have you talk as well.
Thank you.
So
Do you have any more?
I mean, there is gonna, so one of the things that happens with zoning in general is the people that tend to show up and say, there tends to be a majority of people that want to see no change whatsoever. Every single time. And there have been lots of studies about this recently. There's a great book, Neighborhood Defenders, that comes out about the public participatory process and how it basically stymies housing development in the Anglo world. You know, so this is not just a greenfield problem. This is an entire United States, Australia, New Zealand, etc. You know,
Yeah,
there's
Indian.
it is. It's really, it's a terrible situation we find ourselves in. And it's not, you know, the market alone is not going to save us from this problem. This is only a small piece of the puzzle, but it is an important piece. And again, with the caveat that if I had done this, I would have done it differently. And I'm not trying to throw Councilman Mastrotaro under the bus with that. But what he's proposing is still going to be workable. And I don't think it's going to be a crisis as far as the city's aesthetics or the way that the historic district is maintained. So that's kind of I'm happy to say anything else about it. I have lots of thoughts if you can't tell. And a historical base, I like the fact.
Well, Stephanie, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Stephanie Duclos on Chapman Street. I actually abut the Central Commercial District, so I do have some concerns about the height. And I do believe that it would actually change the character of the downtown if we went to 80. I know that other cities in Massachusetts have, gone 60, and that seems to work. It's quite beautiful, fits in with the character. I mean, we used to be Deerfield, and they've kind of kept their historical beauty. I just see, once we, I guess, separated and broke away from them, we decided we're, not like them anymore. But I'm pro preserving as much as we can of what we had. I'm not anti-development, as many people are alluding to. I actually am pro smart development and taking into considerations anything that someone might be able to bring up if they were to want to sue us for some violation of some other law. But so those are always my concerns about, changing something that would definitely change the character of our downtown. I'm not anti-housing. I don't think we should go higher than 65 if that's the highest that most of our areas are doing. So I know it's not a public hearing, but I was a little concerned as to why this particular issue was being brought up at the Historical Commission when your goals and your objectives of the Historical Commission is to really preserve what we have for history. And I did want to speak to the archaeological stuff. I'm not sure if I'm sure you guys know that we were once Lake Hitchcock, so we were an extension of why we find a lot of the the remnants of that history as well. Thank you for letting me speak.
Sure, okay. this was a item that I brought to the table and,
Yeah.
you know, there is, it's late in the game. There's a special city council meeting next Thursday, May 8th.
Hey, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand that there will be public comment. Is that
There will
right?
be lots of public comment.
Yeah. We've expressed our opinion here. I think that's all we came here for. That's all.
Yeah.
The only reason was on the agenda.
Jeremy, do you have something
I-
you want to add?
Well, I mean, a few maybe points and questions, thoughts. Yeah, three things. I think one, related to the question of our authority. My understanding, and I think was mentioned, like we, as it is now, we have no official standing or authority to influence, like we can make recommendations, but we can't control what happens now, because our only purview is if something gets demolished. Obviously, there's my big concern as a preservationist, anytime there's the allowance for major development, is that it can encourage demolition. And as you said, I think those would still come back to us. We'd have the opportunity to, you know, enact a demolition delay, but certainly that's so my concern would be, you know, that it encourages demolishing smaller buildings for larger buildings, which would be, you know, something that in my mind would really change the character. But again, we have tools in place to combat that. If, as is, you know, one of the things on our agenda, if we do go the route of designating the downtown as, or any portion as a local historic district and become a historic district commission, then at that stage, then either this commission or a similar commission would have authority to review and have influence over what is built. So there is a world where, even though we don't have a standing now, you know, in a year, that's a local historic district maybe, and then in that situation, then we do have a similar body has the authority to say, you know, that doesn't fit in.
Right.
So that's a thing that would be down the road.
Yeah.
And my only other thing, I maybe not in the not in the camp of every other preservationist, in that for me, a demolition of a historic building or blocks changes the character a lot more than added height. I mean, I have seen, I do not want to compare Greenfield to Seattle, but I'm gonna bring it. I've seen.
Already done parents.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to be maybe less hardline. I'm pretty hardline in a lot of preservation things, but in this issue, I mean, I know Seattle, which has considerably more development pressure, has some really interesting districts where they have preserved, you know, 2-3-story buildings with, you know, an extra 30 feet on top, and they're, I mean, enormous, and they certainly change the character of the building. But to me, that's a whole lot better than the demolition of the building. So I do, from my perspective at least, I do agree that, you know, adding an extra 2 stories onto a building, you know, changes the character, but to me, it's a lot better than the demolition of the building. And I don't get as scared of extra height next to an older building as I do about demolition.
I have a question about one of your points. Were you talking about a change in the role of the historic commission to have more oversight?
That's our next item.
Gotcha.
So there's different types of historic commissions that can exist in Massachusetts, and we are the one right now without oversight over like new construction within a historic district. But we could potentially be.
Right. Our only power is to respond to Mass Historic when there's historic tax credits involved. So most downtown projects involve historic tax credits. If there's a historic building, now they're gonna wanna go for the tax credit, which is 25%, and can really make or break the funding. And Wilson's has it. All the latest projects have had historic tax credits. So we do have some clout, but we're hoping we can actually develop.
If we changed, if we added this into it, it'd be different.
But once the zoning allows by right 80 feet, we're just whistling in the wind. I mean,
So just, can I have a quick clarifying question about this, potential new kind of role? Would that be approved by the council or is it,
Yes.
okay?
Well, I'll say it's somewhere in between.
Historical District has to be approved by city council.
Right.
to be voted.
Yeah,
It has to be voted in by city council.
And I believe the mayor could veto that as well.
I have, a couple things. One, you mentioned the issue of destroying a smaller building to build a larger building. I'm with you on that. But wouldn't building up actually help mitigate that? Because if you're gonna build a larger building and it has to go this way,
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
you need more space this way, whereas if you're going up, you need less of a footprint. And so you would actually get less destroying of smaller buildings by going up.
Yeah, and I made another big thing. I guess my thrust was that I agree. I think this is not the perfect, I'd rather it be 60, but this is a better, I'd rather see 2 extra stories on top of a historic
Yeah, I
building
mean, I
than the
I
demolition.
can't help
So
but wonder
I'm
if
not-
that 15 feet is, if that's the hill design.
Think that if it was crooked, it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I mean, it may be a big jump, it's easy to hill the die.
It's only a perspective problem, but it's not an actual.
And it's a limit, not a norm. You're not going to assume everyone's gonna build to it.
For what it's worth, I really do love the idea of preserving facades at the very least. You know, if there's a building, like the First National Bank, I know for a while, there was talk about potentially preserving the facade and then doing something else behind it.
Yeah.
Although I hear that we have better news in that category according to the,
Yes.
which is so, I really want to know. I know it's not public yet. And so,
I'm very excited about it.
and so is Amy. Our director of development is also very excited.
Yeah.
It's
My heart, I'm excited by this.
Oh, I know, it's really,
As a library, can we do the old library too?
So is it too late to just say stories instead of 80 feet?
I did my damnedest, even before the public hearing, to get the person introduced it to change it, and he utterly refused. So I tried, I really did. And again, it was the recommendation of FERCog and various other organizations.
Yeah.
Our, development department also recommended it, and he didn't want to change it after the first instance of introduction. And that was that. And so,
I don't know this, but it might be one of those numbers that crops up because like 2x4s are 8 feet long.
Yeah.
And it may be one of those numbers that crops up because of some stupid,
Yeah.
Well, I think
Remember
it's
that's a
elevator
building.
capacity and
Yeah.
elevator.
well, what's it, 5-story? They never built a building
Those
above
were-
5 stories until elevators came in.
That's right.
And you have to have an elevator now for any store.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or anything over.
Yeah, but back in the day.
Back in the day, they restricted it.
Okay, well, if anybody wants
Thanks
to.
for coming in.
join,
Well, appreciate it.
yeah, no, I appreciate
Well,
it.
and if somebody wants to build an 80-foot building downtown, we're still going to be in the discussion, right?
That's my understanding.
No, I mean, there are parts of downtown that aren't a national register district.
Yes. But then we would never say that anyway, would we?
Right, we would.
If
So they could just go ahead and build it.
Right.
If they wanna be.
That's what I'm afraid of.
But there's other obstacles that have to be encountered and conquered in order for that to happen. And we're part of that discussion too, but
Right, there's nothing stopping us from going.
not as an official body, but we're certainly,
Still with
I
me.
know 2 or 3 people.
Please come to the meeting, there'll be lots of people there, like I said, and.
The feeling is it's gonna be loud.
It's gonna be a humble.
Well, it's, to me, it's really a shame that ADUs and this site extension are at the same.
Yeah, they shouldn't be
Oh,
vulnerable.
it's all part of
It's like crazy.
I mean, I get they're the same, they're responsive to the same underlying problem, which is a huge problem.
Just a little bit of the soft making, they weren't intended to be at the same meeting, but an email didn't get it. The logistics of it, there was an error, human error, these things happen, and so it had to get delayed. And then it became a race against time to avoid having to do a second public hearing.
Right.
And so now we can have the full council vote on it, but we have to have the special meeting, so the 90-day timer doesn't run out, and then we have to do the whole thing again. So that's really the challenge. And so that's where my desire to not start this clock again comes from.
Yeah.
Is that it's, again, the scheduling of it is the challenge. And especially because it's budget season and this is a very serious budget season. Like there's a lot, you know, obviously with the schools, there's a huge amount of care that has to go into this. And so we've been heavily focused on that. And again,
Yeah.
my apologies for tone. I will say that as many times as it comes to my mind. But, you know, I again appreciate you folks and the care you put into your work. So thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for coming, appreciate
I
it.
do want to hear this next bit though. So if you don't mind,
Okay.
the sticker. I'm already here. The baby's gone. You know, so,
Well,
okay.
frankly, we missed the
Next
baby.
much more time.
We're running out of time.
Running out of time, so let's talk fast. We have in the back of our minds always thought about having a historic zoning district, a local historic district as a zone. And Sarah has this book, it's, if we,
Historic, most of the recent version that I have here is from 2021. There are others you will find online from like 2003, modified 2007, but the most current one is this one from 2021.
Okay.
and those districts allow us to be, if the city were to pass one, and it only has to be like, you know, 6 properties, doesn't have to be all of the National Register Main Street District, or it's fungible how big it is. But once you have a local historic district, then you get bumped into certified local government. So you get 10% more funding for this and that. I'm really not sure what the stuff, but
Actually,
the survey, do you know?
I have actually a PowerPoint from Long Meadow about benefits to becoming a certified local government.
Oh, cool.
It's their PowerPoint, but I can pull it up.
Great. So we're eager to get that
So I got
review. And, you know, we think Greenfield has a downtown that is beautiful and historic and certainly worth preserving as best we can. And this would give us a few more tools. And would give us more money.
But, you know, be aware that when we talk about preserving, we have approved the Wilson's project. We have approved other projects. So we're not, when we say preserve, we're not talking about putting it and wrapping it in saran wrap. I'm saying you can't touch a brick of this beautiful decaying building because it's our favorite decaying building. I mean, you know, this group has shown in the past that we're, you know, when they want to put solar cells on the roof of the original courthouse. We said, fine.
Yeah.
You can't see them from the street. And they said, well, can't see them from the street. We said, hey, go for it. And so there's a number of other projects that we have intervened on without saying, you know, the saran wrap thing. So that's a different
I do
situation.
think that the situation with the church was a good example of.
Yeah.
Of how this committee works well
Yeah.
and tries to play nice with others, for lack of a better term. And it worked out really well in that situation, so,
That sure did.
yeah.
But I think Sarah was saying earlier in the meeting, beginning of the meeting, she's saying, you know, unfortunately, there's a general opinion of historic commissions as being stick in the mud people who won't let anything be changed and don't want any, you know, whatever. And we work really hard to not be like that group. But on the other hand, this seems to be a reasonable way for us to go forward without saying we're gonna declare wholesale huge swaths of the town. You can't touch the paint because it's the original paint, you know. So there's need to understand that's the way at least I'm thinking.
There is a legal process to follow as well. It has to go through the city council. And the city council votes essentially to basically decide whether or not to have an exploratory committee to form a historic district committee. And that district committee then is the historical commission for that district.
Yeah.
That may be a subcommittee of the historical commission, but it is a process where it's basically like a democratic process where the city decides what it wants. And it's not just like the historical commission's like, well, we're gonna do this, and you know, it's not just throwing their.
Forward.
Exactly.
Well, and individual homeowners get to say this.
The smallest historical district in Massachusetts is 1 building.
Oh, really?
The largest is Nantucket, because it's a whole island.
Oh, no, here. Bird homie.
I want just my kitchen.
And essentially, so a local historic district, basically just establishes locally or through town meeting or city council vote. That's how it's, erected, and it provides a regulatory review process for all changes to exterior architectural features visible from a public way, which so far the city, and the supervision have kind of honored in general with each other, knowing that this whole thing kind of exists, but it would just establish a formal precedent with the city and actually establish a commission for that process.
Right. So like for example, if I understand like the substation building downtown, like we didn't know about it, it happened, but like if this district existed, that would have needed to come through this commission to.
Which substation?
The substation.
The
Oh.
building downtown.
Yeah.
If things changed dramatically, we had no say in that, but in this situation, something like that would come to this committee, which again, may or may not be us, but it'd be this commission would have authority to have to approve that through certificate of appropriateness. Good, next change.
Yes.
They would think it's up because it's 16.
Okay, right.
Well, we're scheduled till 6:30.
I think what we should do.
You don't mean like that? I know.
I suggest that we all do our homework for next meeting. To
Actually
read
send a
that.
digital copy of this
That would
to
be
everybody, including
yeah.
if you like.
But we've had it a second.
Yeah, and then when we get ready to do it, if we do it, you could be the sponsor on the council.
Yeah, I am. I am much more, I'm grateful that I'm here in this room hearing you folks talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I will admit that my fear with some of the stuff was very much along the lines of what you were describing.
Right, right,
So I am grateful that I'm here to
Yeah.
kind of see your faces and know who you are.
right.
And know the intention behind your actions. So I I make no promises, but I definitely will read everything you sent me. And, I'll keep it up.
Yeah.
Great, and actually, speaking of next month, I am not here on the first, Thursday of June, so you'll be.
If I'm here, I'll
Yeah,
have to look at it on the calendar. But a little tough.
okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna run wild with it.
I know.
I mean, sort of in way now.
With no chair and no vice chair.
You'd still have a meeting if there's a quorum. Because there is the next officer.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's you,
That's
Sarah.
you,
Thank you, Aaron.
No, I'm not saying it won't be, I just have to look at it.
And- Yeah, we don't want
Learn
to
through
start.
bad experience, not to say yes, check the calendar.
Okay, well. Tim, you can leave, we can keep talking just for.
I'm not gonna talk behind your back.
No, we're not gonna, but
It'll be okay.
Well, just wait.
what's the sentiment of the meeting? Do we want to just adjourn and do our homework more? Or
Well,
keep-
that's all we can do.
Well, that was the last thing on the agenda, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's all we can do,
Well-
because I need to read that.
I can
Yeah,
send a
so
copy
am I.
to everybody.
yeah.
I think, real briefly, I think on mine, not that I'm moving quickly on the demolition delay. But I think like getting this and the demolition delay ordinances through in the same year may be a lot. For council and
Well,
to do all of that.
It's funny you mentioned that because they actually have an explicit thing in here about demolition delays and how a historical district is not their only recourse for preserving buildings. We could have a specific preservation ordinance and a specific preservation zone. There's options.
I am, by the way, on A and O this year, and I'm the person who is gonna look at the demolition delays whenever it shows up. So that's,
So we're talking.
We're trying to make it a little clearer if there's some muddy parts to it, so.
Yeah, and make it more in line with other delays and other stuff.
the only thing I really know about is what I read in the paper.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I haven't done any research on it, and honestly, just like,
There's
well,
some frustrating issues, especially with timeline stuff.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
coming, and that
It was
was the
hard to
Time on this.
Yeah.
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 I actually, well,
I know.
so far I've got Boston's ordinance. I've got
Ben's written at the end of the day.
I've got several of them. I'm looking through them to find out what language we can include to be stronger.
I think business days instead of just days.
That's what I would.
Right.
Right.
Right, so really quick tweaks would be great.
Exactly,
Yeah,
but we
that's
also,
all really-
the thing is that it doesn't designate, for instance, with the Wiley and Russell Dam, it doesn't designate a structure versus a building. So the Wiley and Russell Dam, great, Okay, but can somebody take TNT to the site? Sure, it's not protected. The dam is what's important, it's not the site. So making that distinction is important if you want to preserve everything.
What did you mean by TNT?
If somebody had to blow it up,
Oh,
like build.
We come from.
TNT, TNT.
We're starting a movement here.
Right to demolition.
Well, you want, let's say you want to build something there, let's say you wanna like you wanna make that Mead Street thing and you want, we need to blow a little bit of the rock out of here.
Yeah.
How, what, you
Like
know,
the
there's no,
co-op.
there's no protection for the site because it's not a,
Hole inside of them.
it's a structure.
Yeah, it's just a lot of ambiguity in it and like what we're supposed to be doing, how exactly it works, what we have authority over.
Just a twist necessary.
And it's weak compared to others around.
I'm
us.
fully a fan of Clarence.
Vague.
Yeah.
It's-
So I don't think,
Language is
personally, I don't think it would be too big a list to do both.
To do both.
I mean, maybe one will.
I mean, I like it, but I don't.
Density changes for ordinance, I think.
It's gonna, yeah, it's a busy time.
Yeah.
It's a busy time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I know that there is, from when I worked in Milwaukee, there was always like the historical preservation community. If too much change happens all at once, we can become targets of becoming, like, you guys are trying to stop everything. So I tend to be incremental change rather than we're gonna like do it all. I like it as an idea, but I think for the public potentially to handle, it could potentially, we don't wanna there to be a reaction.
Right.
And then move it all down because it's too much all at once. It's all my own thing.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Bye-bye.
There you go, Doug.
Anthony, it starts at 5.
Stop it.